Hello again. I'm back with another clock, and this one is sort of a part two. I recently repaired a Hamilton Sangamo clock. When I received it, it was missing some parts, and I was able to find a second Sangamo that had the parts I needed, although that one was missing a power cord. And it turns out, once I removed the parts from one clock to the other, both of them were working. And the first one that I repaired, I decided, because it was running, not to take it completely apart, but I mentioned that the second clock, which is this one, I plan to take apart just to figure out and see exactly how it's put together. But what I discovered with the first one that I worked on is that the start lever, because they're not self-starting clocks, there's a lever on the back that you have to flick like that, and it starts the clock going. And it was sort of sluggish, and I had to flick it several times to get the clock going, which caused me to open it back up, take it completely apart, discovered a lot of built up dirt and oil on the gears and in the mechanism. And once I cleaned and lubricated it, it began to function really quite well. So I figure this clock has to be as gunked up with dirt and oil as the first one, and it wouldn't hurt to take it apart and give it a good cleaning. So what I want to do is make what's basically an instructional video showing how to take apart a Sangamo clock. I had previously looked on YouTube, and there are no videos anywhere showing how these clocks are put together. And so I thought it would be rather helpful if anyone is trying to work on one of these. Before I start, I'd like to note that I got some help in taking the first one apart. As I mentioned in my first video, there's a website, sangamoclocks.com, and the fellow who put that together, his name is Les McAllister. I reached out to him with a couple of questions, and he was able to give me the answers and tell me exactly what I was looking at and how to proceed with it. So I just want to thank him for that. Okay, the first step, I have to take off the rim and the glass. It just slides off. Next, I'm going to remove the screw and remove the hands. And I'm going to just say what I'm doing and then do it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time watching me take these pieces off. The hands are removed. The dial just comes right off. Next, I'm going to remove the motor and where the power cord attaches. Just these 3 screws and 2 more here. I also have to remove the start lever. Once you've removed the screws, the motor just lifts straight out. This part here on the motor fits in here. What I have to do next is remove this plate, which will expose the gears. These long stems are actually screws. I have to undo all 3 of them, and then this whole plate's going to lift up. Just to show it a little more clearly, I have to undo these. The 3 are removed. This is the set knob gear. This just comes straight out. And I should be able to lift up the plate. This is the start lever. It has a spring attached to it, so you have to be careful. Unhook it from one end. And this whole lever slides out of here like that. Next, remove the gears one at a time. And I take a photo each time I remove a gear, so I know exactly how they go back together. Okay. The next part is what's very tricky. There's a small spring that holds the second dial onto this stem. It's really hard to see, but you have to press down on the dial here and just with a pointy instrument kind of pick out the spring, being careful that it doesn't go flying off. Try as I may, I'm unable to remove the spring that's holding the second dial on. What's good though is this clock seems to be particularly clean. I'm not seeing any dirty, oily buildup or grease or anything on any of these parts. So that's encouraging. I'll still clean them up anyway. What does need a good cleaning is the gear that goes into the motor. There's definitely a lot of buildup around here. You can see what's coming off. And the motor itself, hard to see, but sitting in the center of it is a small ball bearing. And there's definitely some grease and dirt built up in there. You want to use a little Q-tip dipped in some alcohol to get that out. Anyway, I'm going to proceed with cleaning everything up. I guess I just got lucky popping the spring off of the first clock that I worked on. Along with cleaning up the gears, I'm also going to clean the plates, especially the holes that the pivots go into. Toothpicks dipped in some alcohol, as well as some acetone. A nail polish remover is good enough. We'll clean out. You can see a bit of grease and dirt in these little holes in the plates. Here and here as well. So I have to clean that. I've cleaned all the gears. I still have to lubricate them. I just put a drop of, not even a drop, just a little bit of synthetic clock oil on the pivots of the gears and in the bushings on the plate. First though, I want to see how much dirt is in the motor. I'll take a Q-tip, dip it in some oil, dip it in some alcohol. And you can see it's pretty dirty in there. And what I like to do, I'll pull off some of that Q-tip and then go back in again. And I'll just keep doing this until it comes out totally clean. I've cleaned out the motor. What I want to do next is lubricate the gears. And to do that, I use a synthetic clock oil. I have a little well here. You put a couple of drops in it. And I use what are known as oil pins. They have a very small tip on the end. It picks up hardly even a drop. And then you just apply it on the end of the pivots here, around each gear like that. Not only on the ends here, but also in the bushings on the plate. And I will just go around everything, get everything lubricated, and then I'll be ready to place the gears back into the plate. The gears are lubricated. Now to reposition them, next, I have to put the start lever sort of mechanism back in here. And reattach the spring. Next, I have to seat this. I think it goes, nope, this way. Hang on. Ah, here we go. And what I have to do next is kind of tease the pivots of the gears into the various holes and bushings in the plate. Let me do that next. The plate's on. The gears are in proper position. I can rotate them manually. Next, the set knob. the rotor. And then the motor sits over this. And it fits through there. Okay, I have to secure it with the screws here and then attach the connector for the power cord. I have the screws in, but they're not down all the way. That lets me lift this plate up a little bit to give room. I still have to insert, this is the governor fan blade. And now that that's in, I can tighten the screws the rest of the way. Okay, next I'm going to attach the power cord and see if it runs. The power cord is attached. Now I have to seat the start lever. Ready to plug it in now. I'll give the lever a flick. And it's running. Very good. What I have to do next, I'm going to seat the dial and the hands. So the dial fits right here. And to make it easier, I'm going to temporarily place the set knob. What I have to do next, seat the minute hand, and it only goes one way. Actually, you could go this way or towards the 10, and then turn the minute hand until it points to the 12. Now I can take off my set knob. Now position the hour hand at the 12. Then the minute hand. I just have to secure that now with this small little washer and screw. I'll work on that. Okay, the hands are secured. The last thing I have to do, place the rim and the glass back over the dial. And if that's all I was doing here as an instructional video on how to take apart and put back together a Sangamo, I would be finished. However, I would like to get this back into the case. But to me, this case is looking particularly beat up. So rather than just try to go over it with my Restore finish, I think I'm going to strip off the old finish You can see how worn some finish is here. A lot of it is off. I'll strip this down and restain and repolish it. At the same time, I'll do a paint job on the back of the plate here. Try to restore the whole thing. So let me get to work on that. One thing that I wasn't happy with on the back plate is because I didn't have the plug that fits here, I would be left with this large hole and the power cord coming through would just be floating around in it. But I came up with, I have these little brackets, and I was thinking if I could bend this and straighten it out, it might just fit nicely in here. And I came up with this. And I think once I glue this into position, that's going to end up looking pretty good. Anyway, I'm going to get to work on the plate. Okay, I've done a couple of things here. One is I painted the back of the plate and also glued into position that piece of metal that I bent into a straight piece. And I think that's going to end up looking pretty good on the back. And the other thing is I've sanded down the case. And the thing about these old cases, these clocks from the 20s and 30s, they used a really good wood. They used walnut and mahogany, but then they cover it with this really dark stain and varnish. And for me, the fact that you can see the wood grain, to me, that's rather attractive. So I'm going to look to use a light stain on it because I'd like to be able to still see that. It's a golden oak is the color, and I'm going to work on that. And once it's stained, the next step will be I can either do a wax polish or I can varnish it, but I've been having some pretty good success using polyurethane. So that's what I'll most likely use. Anyway, let me get to work on that. I've completed the work on the case. And I think it came out looking pretty good. I like that I can see the wood grain. Has a good shine to it. And what I'm going to try to do is maybe show you a side-by-side comparison. Here is the before. And here is the after. What I'm going to do next, place the clock back into the case. I also have to hook up the power cord back onto it. That'll take a few minutes, so let me work on the power cord first, then I'll snake everything through the case. To do that, first I have to put the wire through the back of the plate. Then through the back of the case. Now I can attach it to the clock. I also have to reseat the start lever, screw that back into position. So I'll work on all that and then I'll be ready to insert it into the clock. I've attached the wire. I also placed a small knot in it, which I slipped over this screw post so it can't get yanked out of the back of the clock. Now we'll slip it through the case. Next, I have to secure the back plate. I use these two little screw nuts to tighten it up. Then I just have to reattach the the set knob. Let me work on all of that. Everything's back together. I've attached the set knob. Let me set it up on my table and hopefully it'll still work. Well, I've got it set up and it's plugged in. I'll give this start lever a flip. And it's running. So there you have it. It's a Sangamo, what I'm calling a mini mantle clock. And it was made sometime after 1931. And I'm really quite pleased with how this one came out. I hope you enjoyed the video. Any questions or comments are always welcome. And that pretty much wraps things up. Bye for now.